My name is Luka Powanga, a professor at Regis University in the College of Business and Economics, and the host of the Energy Africa Conference. The Energy Africa Conference pulls together high-level government officials, business executives, researchers, and thought leaders from civil society to dialogue and invest in the effort needed for Africa to meet its energy needs. I'm honored and thrilled to be the conference chairman and keynote speaker for the 2016 International Conference on Business Management, Economics and Social Sciences in Dhaka, Bangladesh. Due to unforeseen circumstances, I'm not able to make this presentation in person, but I would like to welcome you to this important conference. I would like to thank the organizing team for inviting me and for their effort to make this conference a reality. Finally, I would like to thank William, the Chief Executive Officer of Outresco, for giving me full access to the company documents regarding the subject matter that I'm going to discuss. The theme for this year's conference is Economic and Social Transformation through Business Leadership. In line with this theme, I would like to draw your attention to three of the most pressing issues of our time, namely access to energy, water, and climate change. I will largely focus on the electricity access issue and show how an integrated resource planning approach in delivering electricity could be used to reduce carbon emissions, to mitigate climate change, and use less water. Let me begin by looking at the picture taken at night by the United States National Aeronautics and Space Administration, commonly known as NASA. This picture shows areas of darkness across the globe, largely in Africa. To put numbers to the darkness, over 2.7 billion people worldwide have no access to clean cooking facilities, and 1.2 billion of them have no access to electricity. Out of the 1.2 billion people without access to electricity, 600 million are in sub-Saharan Africa. The majority of the affected people are in rural areas or large informal communities within the urban areas. As we all are intimately aware, access to electricity is crucial for communication, transportation, manufacturing, farming, clean water, and economic development. In fact, economic development is directly tied to access to electricity. In African countries, for example, lack of electricity has resulted in a loss of 3 to 5% in gross domestic product every year. Each year, firms on average go without electricity for 58 days, causing a 20% loss in revenues. Clearly, there is a tremendous need to provide access to electricity. However, we must be smart about how we deliver that megawatt. It must be done in a smart fashion to avoid the pitfalls that the industrialized nations stumbled over. Industrialized nations developed their economies based on fossil fuels, which later created problems with carbon emissions, leading to climate change and too much water usage. Now, the question is, can the electric grid, the infrastructure known to be present wherever a large concentration of people exists, be utilized as a transformational tool to provide access to electricity, reduce water usage, and carbon emission to channel society towards sustainability? The answer is a resounding yes. However, it requires us to think in terms of systems. Let me use the United States as an example because there is a feeling and illusion that the power systems, having been in existence for such a long time, complemented by the availability of an array of technologies, are very efficient and therefore should be replicated in emerging economies rather than deploying new and upcoming power systems to leapfrog these old technologies. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with electricity generation, let me just digress briefly to illustrate how the process works to understand the background in which this presentation is framed. As shown in the electricity generation diagram, a fuel input such as coal, oil, or gas is combusted to produce heat that converts water to steam. The steam drives the turbine, which in turn generates electricity. Electricity is transmitted to transformers to produce the right voltage before being distributed to households and other end users. In this process, a lot of water is used to cool the steam turbines, and depending on the fuel source, carbon dioxide is released to the atmosphere as a waste product. Now, the infrastructure of power lines connecting power stations to consumers such as homes, factories, offices, and farms is what is known as the grid. So now let's get back to the case of the United States. The United States is the largest consumer of energy in the world, as illustrated by the energy flow chart, which depicts the various energy sources and the end users. This chart is particularly important because it helps us to visualize the complex interrelationships involved in powering a country. From the chart, the United States consumes about 100 quadrillion British thermal units, or in short, quads, of energy, and almost 60 quads of that energy is rejected, which means the system is very inefficient. During electricity generation, water is used to cool down the steam that was driving the turbines. Or when spent water is discharged to the oceans and rivers, it is cooled down to avoid killing the fish and other creatures. This dissipated or unwanted heat is what is known as the waste heat. Electricity generated from all fossil and non-fossil fuel is 38 quads, with 28 quads as waste heat or rejected energy. Electricity from fossil fuels, coal, natural gas, and oil accounts for 24 quads, and most of it is rejected. Now, if we could find a way of using the waste heat, we could significantly reduce the carbon emissions because we would produce less energy. This observation is supported by the carbon generation chart, which shows that electricity generation yielded 2,040 million metric tons of carbon out of the 5,410 million metric tons of carbon, with the balance coming from residential, commercial, industrial, and transportation activities. Most of this emission could be avoided simply by finding better uses for the waste heat. Now, water use is also heavily impacted by waste heat. From the water usage chart, you can see that 62,000 million gallons of water a day is used to get rid of the waste heat. In short, tremendous volumes of carbon dioxide are produced, and a lot of water is wasted just to get rid of the waste heat. With proper systems management and technology, water use and carbon emissions could be significantly curtailed to conserve water and provide a cleaner environment to mitigate the effects of climate change. Now, this leads to another question. Why is the system so inefficient? What is it that could be done to make it more efficient? The reason the system is inefficient is because the systems involved in the production and use of electricity are disconnected. Case in point, while steam at power plant A is being cooled, power plant B is heating up water to create steam, or that same steam may be needed to heat a residential area. With an integrated approach, steam would be pumped from power plant A to power plant B or to the residential area prior to discharging the water into the ocean, thus eliminating the cooling process at power plant A and making electricity delivery cheaper for both plants A and B, or cheaper heating for the residential area. However, since these three facilities are now operating in silos, we waste massive volumes of water to get rid of the waste heat while increasing the cost of energy delivery for both plants A and plants B, and also for the residential area. To make the system more efficient, there must be an integrated resource planning approach to break down the silos and look at the whole process of providing electricity as consisting of different layers of well-defined systems that work together to support a business mission such as economic development. One such approach is the comprehensive resilient infrastructure systems planning, in short, CRISP framework. That includes understanding the unique resource challenges and opportunities within diverse urban systems, including social, cultural, economic, governance, environment, and infrastructure systems, to inform project development, evaluation efforts for multiple defined goals, for instance, health, jobs, resilience, etc., and stakeholder engagement processes and deliberations. The deployment involves studying systems to develop a general framework that could be customized to different situations. For example, we could have a microgrid that integrates all the processes of the business that it serves, such as the one given in the slide. Different functions ranging from the industrial area, water treatment, thermal storage, and thermal desalinations are working as a system to ensure there is no needless waste of energy. The microgrid generates both heat and electricity, and both are utilized in the system with no waste heat remaining behind. In sum, the power systems that were the bedrock for industrialization in the past are now the biggest contributors to climate change and wasting resources such as water and polluting the environment. With the advancement in technology, coupled with multidisciplinary research to understand the systems and allow for development and adaptation in response to changing needs, we can build frameworks that could adapt to different situations. For this reason, the Energy Africa Conference has partnered with Otresco Company to encourage research in different systems to help advance society towards sustainability. Please feel free to contact me for further details. Thank you very much for listening.